Welcome to the Beyond the Spine podcast, where precision meets performance. I'm Dr. Bobby Fano, Gonstead Chiropractor, educator, and performance strategist. And around here, we don't settle for average. We raise the standard because becoming better isn't something you stumble into. It's something you build through precision, discipline, and purpose. Each episode, I sit down with leading chiropractors, innovators, and performance experts to uncover the principles that drive real results in your body, in your mindset, and your mission. From biomechanics to belief systems, from clinical mastery to personal growth, we explore what it really takes to stay aligned with what matters most, so you can show up stronger in every area of your life. Whether you're a chiropractor sharpening your craft, an athlete pushing your limits, or someone committed to living at your highest level, you're in the right place. Because when the body is aligned, anything is possible. Starting now. Welcome to another episode of the Beyond the Spine podcast. I'm Dr. Bobby Fano, your host. And in today's episode, I'm interviewing a really great friend of mine, Dr. Rhett Adams. Over 8 years ago, he showed up at my doorstep at Vertical Chiropractic in Redding, California as a chiropractic intern. And over 8 years later, he has crushed all those goals that he set out to accomplish as an intern into ownership of Venture Chiropractic located in Charlottesville, Virginia. He's going to share all his insights, mindset shifts, from becoming an intern into an owner. And I would consider him the full paradigm human in terms of mastering his chiropractic craft. He's a diplomate with the Gonstead Clinical Studies Society. He spends even more time, energy, and focus into his marriage, into his children, and adventuring while living the life of his dreams. He makes a huge difference in the Gonstead world. He's a second-generation chiropractor. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Rhett Adams. Welcome, Dr. Rhett, to the Beyond the Spine podcast. Excited that you're here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So Dr. Rhett was an amazing intern with me in California. And we just had a blast. We just hung out at the Gonstead Clinic. So I'm excited to have a chat with you and catch up with you. So always how we start off is just tell us kind of your story, how you got into chiropractic, all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, I'm a second generation Gonstead chiropractor. My dad, Parker Adams, is also a Gonstead chiropractor. So I have that background. I pushed off the idea of being a chiropractor for so long until I just couldn't say no. I live my life like a human crash test dummy. I've done so many things to my body. So thank goodness I have a dad that's a Gonstead chiropractor that's been able to take care of all of my injuries, all of my broken bones, everything. So I'm thankful that I'm as athletic today as I am now because of Gonstead Chiropractic. But yeah, so followed that path into school and officially decided I wanted to go into chiropractic while I was in undergrad and just went head first, no turning back once I made that decision.
That's awesome. So was there like an aha moment that you had where you're like, you know what, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, I always thought I was going to go into the health field, and I thought I would be a doctor of some sort. But the aha moment for me was when it finally clicked that if I was going to be a doctor, like a medical doctor, the way I would help people towards health was to give them medications or refer them to somebody else. And that just was totally not in integrity with what I grew up doing. I've never taken any medication. So it just did not make sense to help people towards health via that route for me. And so then that got my gears turning and visited Life University, heard Dr. Guy Reekman give a talk and on basically how health works from an inside out perspective. And hearing that in a new light was what turned things around for me.
That's awesome. So tell us about like your journey of, okay, so now you're deciding to become a chiropractor. you applied to Life University, got in, then what? What did
Mhm.
that look like for you?
Yeah. So I was pretty gung ho. Right after school, graduated in what was it, May, and then started in June. So I graduated undergrad in May, started chiropractic school in June. No time off really between the two, just went head first into it. And in school, I was a seminar junkie. I went to, in a 12-week quarter, I was probably going to 7, 8, 9 seminars pretty easily every quarter through chiropractic school, which is what you got to do to really learn the art of chiropractic. Um, my journey with Gonstead Chiropractic specifically, I wanted to explore all the avenues of chiropractic and different techniques, and did a 100-hour course in a different technique. Checked that out. I explored and worked at at the functional neurology clinic at the Carrick Institute in Atlanta, which was an amazing experience, but settled into Gonstead Chiropractic because that's what made sense to me the most, with its biomechanical approach, with its 5-step protocol. I didn't feel like we were just wheeling and dealing. It just made sense to follow a set program each time we take a look at a patient. And so followed that path, got really involved in the Gonstead Club at Life, and became an officer and the president in my later years there. And that's actually where we met, when you helped out with our club. And so that's when our paths finally crossed at the end of my schooling.
That was fun, man. I love teaching. And it was awesome because you were the president at the time. Is that right? Or an officer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you went to all these different seminars, as you were saying. Did you also visit other Gonstead doctors' offices as well?
Yes. More so later in school. Um, I visited the ones around Atlanta. At the time, there weren't too many Gonstead offices around there, but especially later, about halfway through school and on, I visited. Usually on most breaks, I would visit 1 to 2 to sometimes more doctors. Anytime I was home back in Roanoke, Virginia, I'd shadow my dad, which is a huge wealth of information, to just have the ability to go home and shadow him, which is great. But I remember going out to Colorado on a road trip once with my now wife, and we visited on a 10-day trip. I think I visited 12 different offices, including Dr. Herb Wood's office down in Colorado Springs, which was a lot of fun. Got our back windshield blown in by a hailstorm right after that shadow
Oh,
experience.
yeah.
But yes, I think shadowing doctors is, you have to do it. You got to see the different flavors of practice. You learn some of what you want to do, what you don't want to do. And it's paramount to see it. You can't, otherwise you're going in blind.
So growing up in your dad's clinic, right? Seeing what
Mhm.
he was doing, being in his environment, did you ever find yourself as you were shadowing these other doctors and looking at their offices, comparing what you knew about your dad and how he was practicing to like what you were seeing?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I think seeing my dad practice is a template to go off of. And the style of care. And so, of course, it's a big shock if I go into a non-Gonstead office and see things very different from that perspective. But yeah, I think I was always comparing that to a baseline. But as I moved along, I kind of learned that there are some things that I would want to do differently for myself versus versus the way that he did things. So I had a baseline that I was going off of, but I was adjusting that baseline based off of what I saw that I liked and didn't like.
Okay, cool. So when you were graduating chiropractic school, maybe you're, towards the tail end of that experience, you know, we all think like, okay, this is what I want my office to look like. I remember when I was in
Mhm.
chiropractic school, I would like dream about it. Kind of like, your dream house, for example. You walk in, right? You can visualize what it's going to look like, and how it's going to be. So how was that process for you?
That's a good question. I think for me, that process continued to. I had a general idea. around the time of graduation, that idea of the visualization of what my practice would be someday started to pixelate more, honestly, during my time spent with you in California at Vertical Chiropractic. As I got further out from graduation and then closer to opening my own clinic. So for me, the picture, I had a faint picture of what I wanted down the line around graduation time. And I knew I'd always want to run and own my own practice. It took a little time for that picture to pixelate.
So what were some of the key things that you were looking for when you were on that journey of figuring out how you wanted to practice, what you wanted to look like, etc.?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so much of that when you're first in your latter years of schooling, so much of that you're trying to figure out where you even want to settle down. So many students are trying to figure out, okay, take a pin on a map, and do we want to be I'm in Charlottesville, Virginia, but do we want to be in Virginia, or do we want to be in Greenville, South Carolina, or Asheville, North Carolina, up and down the coast, or do we want to be in Redding, California? And so for me, each of those places has its own flavor and idea that influences the way I think about a practice. But at a baseline, though, I needed to be able to visualize what the place looked like as soon as I walked in. And for me, taking you through my visualization process, I imagine a lot of quality wood in the practice, which is what I have now. I have a cedar front desk, which is awesome. Wood paneling all along the walls, and I made a black walnut coffee table out there. So that's just aesthetics, and you're hit with good scents of essential oils that are diffusing, and more than just the visual aspect of what you hit when you're walked in. I wanted the energy to be upbeat, vibrant, a place that people could walk into and know that that this is not a flippant place. This is a place where people care, and they're intentional. And so, but it had to have like an uptick in the beat of the music, not down and depressing per se. So those are some of the notes that I was trying to hit as I visualized this process.
Cool. So how important would you say, now that you own your own practice, how important is that environment that you love to work in and be around? How does that play a role into even the results that you get?
Yeah, I think that the way that we set things up is huge, because as you move along, this is probably different for each person, but once you get things going, you're like a train that's just moving, and you're still just trying to take care of patients. So it's best you get everything set well from the start. Kind of like if you move into a house and you do so much work on the front end to get it all ready and you put new paint on the walls, you're decorating, you're renovating this bathroom or this kitchen, you're doing everything from the start. You get everything in there, and then you move all your stuff in, and then it's months before you paint a room again, or before you try to change something up. So it's really important that you get things right from the get-go, because that impacts patient flow, your patient experience.
How important was that internship before you hit the ground running, setting up your office, right? Just knowing that, like, hey, I got to grow this practice. It's all set up, and that's the focus. But, you being an intern with me, for example, or somebody else being an intern for, another doctor, that inspires them. How important was that to your process when you actually went out to figure out that town and to, get your location, sign your lease, and hit the ground running?
Gosh, I cannot stress how important that is. And just to clarify to our listeners, the internship I did with you was after graduation, after what Life University calls as their peak internship, or as some other schools call their preceptorship. During those internships, you can learn some nuts and bolts of a practice, and get your feet a little wet. But there's so much, you're still in the thick of school. You're still trying to hit numbers. You're still trying to get across the finish line with boards and graduation. When I reached out to you, I basically said, Bobby, I'm coming to work with you. I don't care how it's going to work, but we're going to make it happen, and I'm working with you. And you graciously took me under your wing, and I was just really, I was just a sponge when I first got there. So the way I think about my experience working with you, I broke it into 2 phases. So I was with you for a little over half a year, thereabouts. And in the way I think about it, the first phase was a learning phase, and then the second phase was more of a launch pad phase. The first phase being learning, I was just a sponge. I was soaking everything in, learning all the systems and processes, which is, frankly, that is so important to know, because I took a lot of that with me once I had some mastery over those, with everything from just your typical patient experience, day 1, day 2, how to interact with patients. And once I gained comfortability with that after several weeks doing new patient exams and doing ROFs with patients, and going over financials and going through that whole patient process, once you do that enough, you realize, wow, I could do this anywhere with anybody. There's a level of comfortability with that. Mm-hmm. So that learning those systems really teed me up for success, because had I not learned that with you, I would have just been winging it in practice, and I'm sure my patient results would not be nearly as good, because I wouldn't be communicating what I need from them, and then the patient experiences would be not nearly as good. Also, too, what was really helpful for me, and I would recommend this to anybody during your school internships, and then also working with a doctor post graduation, is spend some time at the front desk. Working at the front desk is not below you. It's incredibly helpful because I don't know about what other people do, but when I came and started my own practice, I had to train somebody to run the front desk, and so you need to know what you want up there. And while I was there, you had let go of a front desk person, so I got some extra time at the front desk, which was great. It was perfect. I learned everything I needed to know about running and working a front desk. And this is not just any front desk. This is a front desk of at the time was a booming practice, really busy. And so you're like air traffic controller, landing planes and sending others off. And, and there's a certain level of skill that's involved with that to make that run smoothly, so it doesn't feel clunky. So patients just, it flows and there's an energy to it. And if you don't know the systems behind that, you're lost.
Absolutely. Gosh, you brought up a few great points. At the time, we were seeing 100+ patients a day. And it was cool because first off, when Dr. Rhett was like, hey, I'm coming to intern with you, I believe you guys came out first, if I can recall right.
That's right. Yeah, we visited.
Which I think it's important. So if you're looking for an internship yourself, I highly recommend, even though you're probably watching somebody from afar and seeing how they practice and looking at their website and whatnot, it's really important to get boots on the ground. So visiting that chiropractor, that is inspirational teacher, if you will, see the town, see if you resonate with it, look at the practice, observe. And it was cool because Dr. Rhett brought his wife. So I actually had two team members. So we actually hired his wife, Katrina, at the time. So she was learning the front desk because we knew that they were going to practice and she was going to help him out. So it was great to have her there. She was, learning everything you need to know about a bustling front desk, all the scripting, everything, just really creating that wow experience. And, she learned the tour. I still have those amazing photos to this day. They're incredible. She was a rock star, definitely black belt CA for sure. And then Dr. Rhett even started there too. I usually do start everyone every chiropractor at the front desk, because you got to know what your team is doing. Because we
Hmm.
always say the energy, the practice really starts at the front desk.
Hmm.
So to know what it's like to be the chiropractic assistant, to know, what they're doing up there, and to really guide and lead them is, I think, the most important thing, because the front desk is seeing patients twice, when they come in and when they leave, right? And it's a really important aspect to scaling the practice, is having a really great team and knowing what they're going through and supporting them as much as possible. Dr. Rhett, so let's go through now, so, okay, you did your internship, right? You learned a ton of things, and you were ready to rock and roll. All right. You picked a town, you had your practice name, Venture Chiropractic, which I think suits you really well, because it was one big adventure. So
Hmm.
Dr. Rhett wasn't just at the office practicing. And I want to point out too, he was living life. He was actually hiking and enjoying the town, and he was out in nature. He was traveling every chance he got, because we were working Monday through Thursday. So he had Fridays off a lot of the time. And he was just, really what I call the full paradigm human experience. Was he was enjoying his wife. He was enjoying his work. He was growing and learning and getting better, really in every category of life. So tell us now about that process of you. Okay, I'm ready to go. You feel empowered. You feel like you got everything you came for at that internship. And you did associate with us for a short time as well. So we pretty much
Hmm.
were like, all right, Rhett, you do it. You get your own patients. You get out there. So we learned the marketing aspect, and how to really get patients, because you learned how to serve them at first, but then that second phase was, okay, go out there in the community, and let's see what you got. So he did that really well, and then he felt empowered. So take it from there.
Yeah. That was, gosh, empowered is the right word. To show up at a screening where you don't have really, you don't know what's going to happen, and then to have 15 new patients after that screening, where you're only there for a few hours, it just blows your mind. And then the next couple of weeks you're really busy, especially as a young doc at the time, learning the ropes. So to know that, hey, I could go out and do this anywhere, and draw in new patients. It really helps to think about it in that phase of, okay, this is the associate phase where okay, now I'm the doctor, and I have to basically create my own business here, seeing patients, marketing, putting myself out there, because that's all of what a new practice is about when you're building your own business. And so a lot of that time was spent, that latter half of our time together, was spent understanding what it's like to take care of patients, which that's its own realm of patient care and case management. Um, and then there's this other realm of the dynamics of leading a patient along the journey of not just the results that you're getting them, but empowering them along the way. Um, and so getting some comfortability with that during that season was huge, because when I was able to take it across the country to little old Charlottesville, Virginia, I knew without a shadow of the doubt the first couple of people that walked through my door, I could take them on that journey, from where they started to the goals and desires that they set for them, and I knew I had the conviction and the confidence that I can take them to that position. And that came from an experience that I had before working with you and taking care of patients and knowing all the ins and outs, um, of our time together. And so
So
with that, I'd say some of the, to add in there, some really helpful things that launched me um, into that knowledge, or some really practical things I thought that help me was the marketing. Early on when I was with you, I would tag along and we go and meet other business owners. And I listened to a few talks that you did out in the community. And so that was a good, good way to get my feet wet. And then later on, I was the one doing that, representing vertical chiropractic and going out there, meeting people, going to chamber events, networking, really just putting myself out there and learning what that looks like, from an external marketing perspective.
What were some challenges that you had when you started practicing? So you had this, this experience where like, okay, I kind of put those puzzle pieces where they needed to be. I filled the gap. Okay. You guys moved to a town that you didn't grow up in. Cause I think,
Mhm.
I just
Correct.
recently talked to a friend who's wanting to start a practice, and we kind of went through the options of, he was like, I can stay in the town I grew up in, which would be easy, but it didn't really light a fire in his heart. He kind of wanted more. So that was a safe bet. And then, there's a couple other options that would like challenge him, moderately. And then the adventure, you know, was like the
Yeah.
third option. So, you kind of built yourself from the inside out, as you said, right? You kind of like, anyone who came through the door, I felt confident that I could take care of them, I had the skills, I can get them from point A to point B, right? Close the gap to the patient's goals, build value in the process. And then you set up your practice. It was, the environment that you saw, the aesthetics, right? All the elements, that would make it an amazing space to be in, a healing space. So tell us some of the
Mhm.
challenges that you weren't expecting in the beginning.
Yeah. The Man, there's just so much hustle when you first get started. There's just so much hustle and a lot of different ways of putting yourself out there, and getting a practice off the ground. Even just physically, when you're first getting things together. I spent many late nights here putting up wood paneling and building the front desk and doing things I never thought I would ever do, but I love. And it's great. I did it. I kind of had a really lean startup, which is what I would recommend to a lot of folks. Had my X-ray machine and then had my equipment, and then worked with my landlord to do the build out. And you don't need all the bells and whistles. You just need to have a room or two to be able to see patients, depending on your setup, and then you're good to go as long as you can get patients in the door. So even for me, when I first got started, I have two adjusting rooms that I go back and forth between. At the time, I only had one that was set up. I was hustling to get like my front desk built and pictures on the wall and get the space. I mean, the space probably felt so empty when I first got started. Now we have, plants and decorations and whatnot. But I only had one adjusting room, and I was just seeing patients out of that one adjusting room. But that's what you got to do. You got to get things started, at least get some momentum. And with that, sometimes, so a challenge for me was I was, coming off of a mountaintop experience working with you, and seeing a lot of patients and seeing what worked over in California versus what works in Virginia. And those are two very different markets, different demographic of folks. And so we quickly found out that some things from a marketing perspective, like screenings, didn't work over here like they traditionally did. And it's not for lack of trying or lack of effort on our part. We tried a lot of different things, and we just quickly realized that, hey, this, an event where we could go and do a screening in California and very quickly fill our calendar for the next 2 or 3 weeks with, 12 to 15 new patients pretty easily. We might get 1 or 2 new patients at this screening. And then you're asking yourself, is this worth the effort, putting yourself out there and
Right.
just learning the environment. So that was a huge challenge. So finding what works, and some of that's trial and error to find what works in your area. Also too, I think I set mentally too, you have to be kind of ready for whatever may come your way. I was expecting that, as soon as you open up the doors, patients are going to be lining up to see you. And I think that's the case for some people. Wasn't the case for me. And so it took a little time for things to build and things to snowball. But I had a friend once tell me that, it's easy for us to way overestimate what we can do in a year, but it's easy for us also to underestimate what God can do in 5 years. And so as time moves on, things shift and change in ways that you don't even realize. And that's been the case for me. Once we got past that the first 6 months, a year, I finally kind of slowed down and just settled into the process without having major expectations on myself. Because things took a little bit longer to build than I expected coming out of school.
I'm quickly interrupting you to let you know that Electronic Development Labs, or EDL, the developers of the Nervoscope, which every Gonstead doctor uses to look for inflammation and nerve irritation in the spine, is offering my listeners 10% off any Nervoscope purchase on their website. All you have to do is call them and tell them Fano10, or go on their website during your checkout, put in the promo code Fano10, and they will honor 10% off any Nervoscope, including the newest one with the digital readout. Right. Yeah. You bring up a great point where when I moved even from California to Florida, it was a very different market. And I would literally do the same video ad in California and I would get like 40 new patients a month. And then in Florida, Zippo. And I was like, wow, that's different. Right.
Uh-huh.
And I realized that, wow, people use different platforms, in different locations. So I think you bring a really great point. Just because something's working somewhere else doesn't mean it's going to work here.
Mm-hmm. Right? And part of starting up a business is you have to be malleable. You have to be on your toes, just figuring out what to do. So like in that example, you realize, okay, this video is not working. Let's try this instead. It's a lot of different trial and error when you're first getting started before you find a rhythm of what works well for you.
Absolutely. And, I remember when that was happening at the time, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. But my perspective was, okay, I need to do something different. Number one. And number two, I need to get better. And I remember I had a bustling practice in California. So I didn't really I had the notoriety in town. I didn't really have to market. And then when I moved to Florida, it was like, wow, I had to learn it all over again. Like, especially with like SEO and different elements of marketing digitally. And it's very different now than it was, let's just say 8 years ago. So I had to become a student again. So what did you find yourself when you were like, okay, this isn't working? How did that push you in certain ways?
Yeah, that's a great question. I realized my journey was I realized that screenings weren't working so much. SEO can sometimes take a little bit to build, and especially for launching a website in November. I'm not expecting it to be number one by March, right? It just doesn't work like that.
Right.
So that I knew that was going to take some time, and I had some people working on that. But for me, I just needed to get out there. So the avenues that I took when first starting out is we tried the screenings. We didn't really get so far with that. We still tried to have presence at places. So I was really involved in our Chamber of Commerce, and volunteered where I could. I felt like a great place to volunteer was checking people in at those networking events and introducing myself literally to every single person that came in. And I had Katrina, my wife, there with me. I roped her into it because she's great at that sort of thing. And I'm like, Katrina, you need to be here. So use all the tools you got, right? So I went to a lot of networking events, and business meetings, business groups. And then I turned the focus more towards lunch and learns, which was really helpful. The strategy I used was, there's a lot of different ways to do it out there, but I put up like a basket where people could put business cards, almost like the old fishbowl idea, in a restaurant, like a health food restaurant, and said, hey, if you and your team want a free lunch, drop your business card in here and we'll reach out to you. And so I get a basket full of business cards and reach out to those people and try to filter who was a good fit for what I wanted to do. And I come in and do a little lunch and learn talk with them for 10 to 20 minutes. Usually worked well to combine that with a team meeting, because so many people are virtual or some people are in the office and not in the office. If I can get a team of 10 people in the office and do a talk with them. If more would be great. But I was happy with 10 folks, and then the conversion on that is a lot better than a screening. So, and I'm only in there for 20, 30 minutes.
Cool. What would you talk about?
I did. I've dabbled with different talks, but I would try to cater it towards them. So I'd talk. It's so easy for us as chiropractors, especially Gonstead chiropractors, to go in and talk about the disc and just how things degenerate. And some people are really interested in that. Some people want more of just a generic health talk. So I started to move towards more of here's chiropractic 101. Like in a 5 to 10 minute synopsis. Keep it really simple and just say, hey, these are the things that we help with, and put it in their court so they could see it. Put myself in their perspective, and just put myself out there, because it's not always that. It's not just the stuff you talk about that's going to drive them towards coming in to see you. It's how you present it. And sometimes it's just being there with them. And it's the conversations that happen before or after the talk. It's not so much the 10 or 20 minutes that you have doing the talk. They might be really engaged with that. But usually it's the stuff that happens around that time that's where the magic happens.
Absolutely. You brought up another really great point in terms of the chiropractic startup. You mentioned that you outfitted one room. So you had 2 rooms and you outfitted one room until you had the volume, or you can, invest in that other room. I remember when I was setting up the Tennessee office, we had everything set up, everything completely set up. And I was waiting to open because our carpet, we basically ripped up the carpet, and there was a glue on the floor, and it was like sticky and tacky. So we had our our Gonstead tables on top of it, but it was weird because you would be like sticky and then you try to adjust somebody. So it bothered me more than anyone else, because I was so focused on the aesthetic aspect of it and the environment, that my friend was like, just open, who cares? And he said, the person that owns the story, drives the outcome. So the story was, he was like, why don't you invite your new patients into the story of you opening, and having the tacky glue on the ground, and how they were part of that process of us building this practice. And I was like, okay, so we ended up opening with not everything in place. And I'm so glad we did that, because a lot of times you just have to take action, right? And not kind of worry about those details. So how did that also play out in your startup process as well? And how important is it to even go low overhead? Can you touch on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, what you talked about there for me is huge, because I'm a perfectionist by nature, and probably a lifelong lesson is done is better than perfect. It's so easy to just get fixated on something and want it to be perfect before you open the doors and let people in. But they say now that authenticity is the new currency, and I think people want to be invited into the messiness. They want to be invited into the sticky floors. And the fun part too is that if you're in an area and you invite people into that, they create this bond with you. I have patients now that I've seen for 7 or 8 years since I opened, and they're like my first 100 patients that I saw, and they're still with me, and I can reminisce with them and say, remember when you were supposed to come in on our first day and we got 18 inches of snow and we had to move you to the next day of our first opening, and there was nothing in here. And I could just kind of joke with them about that and just kind of say, remember when? And it kind of paints this picture of, remember how long you've been here, and remember how you were really hurting and your neck was killing you, and look at you now, you're out there playing and doing X, Y, and Z. So it's really fun to take people on that journey, and invite them in when you open yourself up to. And it's so easy to put up a facade and not let people into that, but I think you got to sometimes. So for me, I learned that lesson by not just not having everything fully done when I opened up. We tried to get everything up on the walls as best as possible, but gave myself some wiggle room to say like, okay, there's still room for improvement here. We're gonna open up the doors and start seeing people. Made sure I could still take a person from day one through when I started taking care of them. So for me, I was really thankful to have X-ray set up here, so I was able to start taking X-rays right off the get-go. So I think the as far as lean setup goes, as a new grad, it's pretty easy to get an X-ray machine and the X-ray build out. They just use the X-ray machine as collateral as the loan or against the loan, and so it makes it really easy to get it. And for me, the X-ray machine pays for itself in a very short amount of time. Definitely. Because as a Gonstead chiropractor, you need X-rays, and you really rely on positioning of X-rays, of patient positioning. And I just cannot trust sending out X-rays to an imaging center. I'm sure I get to see some of what I need to see, but from an analysis perspective, you can only take it so far without taking your own films or training somebody up to take your own films.
Right.
But yeah, I think lean startup is the way to go. Our X-ray room, I bought sheets of lead, like rolls of lead, and my dad and a friend came up, and we hung the lead up and drilled the lead into the studs before they put drywall over the lead. And that was the cheaper way to go than instead of getting the lead infused drywall, which is really easy to crack and then you're not able to use it. So that's just a factor where we probably save thousands of dollars doing it that way, and nobody's the wiser. It still looks like an X-ray room. Nobody knows if it's lead infused drywall or not. So I think you have to ask yourself, where are places that you can cut costs and just start turning a profitable practice rather than go way in over your head in debt with a startup.
Absolutely, it's easy to do. So how long have you been in practice now on your own?
Yeah. So later this fall will be 8 years.
Awesome. Wow. Time flies. Mm-hmm. Time flies. So tell us briefly where you're at now.
Yeah. We're the snowball has accumulated momentum, and we've built up a presence in the area. Charlottesville is a smaller area. And so word gets around town very quickly. And so people know who we are, which is great. We've served a lot of folks, and it's just really nice to be in a system that we're not in that grind and hustle phase anymore. Things move along well. Although, there's some weeks where it's, you look at your schedule and go, oh my goodness, how did this get so busy? And those are great. That's a blessing to have that problem. But yeah, I'm just so incredibly thankful for the place that we're at in practice right now, and staying consistent, staying diligent to keep practicing. In 8 years of practice, my hope is to be 8 years wiser in practice rather than have 8 years of practicing the same day over and over again and just have one day of experience 8 years in a row. So as a clinician, I'm growing. As a businessman, I'm growing. And that's what I aspire to do.
So knowing what you know now, 8 years in, what kind of advice would you give your younger self that was in chiropractic school, looking to open his practice, looking for that awesome internship?
Yeah. I'd say seek out. So get first out of graduation, seek out somebody that you want to have in your corner as a mentor. And I think you need to ask yourself too, what realms of being a chiropractor, or what realms of a mentor are you looking for? I was really lucky that as far as clinical certainty and clinical excellence, I had my dad to lean on as a Gonstead fellow and somebody that's been in the Gonstead work for a long time. but he'll be the first to admit that business acumen and life balance that's not his thing. And so I sought you out, Bobby, and because of some of those things, and because of your just magnetic personality and your family, and so that I saw that and said, that's what I'm after. I'm gonna work with you. And so I think you have to know, as a new grad, you have to know, okay, who's in your corner already? Who can you lean on in practice? Because these are people you're going to call up. These are going to be people that you're going to be connected with probably for your whole career. So you want to think long and hard about who's in your corner and who you can lean on, and what cups are filled and what cups are not filled. So that's one thing. You got to get started on an internship, work in a practice, and just cut your teeth learning the work systems from A to Z in a practice. And then once you get started in practice, give yourself permission to fail, to not be perfectly polished. That's probably more advice that I need than anybody. But give yourself permission not to be totally polished, because I think people are pretty drawn to that.
Growth happens in the tension. We were just talking about that, right? Not too long ago. So
that's exactly
it's
right.
really important to enjoy the journey. And I'll tell you what, it's been an honor and a privilege. I'm so grateful to be a part of your journey when I was. And you're a great friend, great chiropractor, and successful. Not just, success is different for everybody. When I say successful, I mean it in not just a chiropractor, which 100% you are, but also in life, in like your marriage. You have kids now, you're a great father. So you really love people well. The energy you bring to the practice is one of just, you're here to help. This is a calling, not just a job. And it's just really fun to watch that in motion. So I really appreciate you, Dr. Rhett.
Thanks, Dr. Bobby. I really appreciate those words.